You've probably seen this picture before, an unbelievable crowd waiting to summit Mount Everest.
Stau am Mount Everest.
Look at this, 300 climbers queuing to make the summit.
Une file indienne sur le toit du monde.
The astonishing photo was taken by Nimsdai Purja.
But did you know that the man behind this photo is a legendary climber who has faced significant controversy? If you have a Netflix account, you may have seen his face or heard his story in the documentary 14 Peaks, Nothing is Impossible. But recent years have brought forward allegations and questions about this mountaineer. Is he a hero who should be celebrated in history, or is he a figure misunderstood in the middle of complicated circumstances? From world records to intense drama on Everest and serious allegations, watch to the end and decide for yourself what you think about legendary and controversial king of climbing, Nimsdai Purja. As always, viewer discretion is advised. After I first published the original version of this video, Nim's lawyer reached out to me, asking me to remove the video. As you can see from the email, he disputed news sources and questioned our journalistic integrity. So I went back to the drawing board to do more research, review news sources, and verify facts. What you're about to see is the second edition of this story. It was October 29, 2019, when Nirmal Nimsdai Purja stood on the summit of Shishapangma, completing a feat that would go down in mountaineering history. Over just 6 months and 6 days, Nims had climbed all 14 of the world's tallest mountains, each one towering over 26,000 feet. Simply put, this was something no one had ever done, and for many, it was thought impossible. But Nims isn't like most people. He had just redefined what's possible on the world's highest peaks, showing that the only real limits are the ones you place on yourself. Before we explore some of the more complex sides of his journey, let's take a step back and look at what got him to that moment on top of Shishapangma, and what made him known for breaking records that most mountaineers wouldn't even dream of attempting. In May 2019, he became the first person to summit 3 of the tallest peaks on Earth in less than 48 hours: Mount Everest, Lhotse, and Makalu. To give you an idea of just how wild this is, let me tell you that most people need days or even weeks to recover between climbs. But Nims? He did it in 2 days. It wasn't just about ticking off peaks, though. During his journey, Nims took a viral photo on Mount Everest. The image showed the overcrowded summit, with climbers waiting in line. That image sparked a worldwide conversation about the dangers of commercial climbing on Everest. Even in the middle of his record-breaking expeditions, Nims was influencing the entire mountaineering community. You'd think with a climbing resume like his, he'd been climbing mountains since he could toddle. But you'd be wrong. Nims was born in Nepal in 1983 and had a pretty humble start. His family wasn't wealthy, and like many Nepalese, he came from a background tied to the land. His father was a Gurkha soldier, and the military path seemed natural for him. At the age of 18, he joined the Brigade of Gurkhas, following in his father's footsteps. But it wasn't long before his exceptional skills were recognized, and in 2009, Nims became the first Gurkha ever to join the British Navy's Special Boat Service, SBS. If you're not familiar, the SBS is one of the most elite special forces units in the world, specializing in cold weather and high-risk operations. It's here that Nims developed the mental toughness and resilience that would later define his mountaineering career, shaping him into a modern-day legend. It would be years before Nims would find himself in the middle of shocking controversy. For almost a decade, Nims served with the SBS, taking on missions that he wasn't allowed to talk about. That only leads our imagination to assume they were dangerous. He's hinted at some of the risks he faced, including being shot at and wounded in action. But in 2018, with an opportunity to join the Special Air Service on the table, Nims made a surprising choice. He left the military. Most people wouldn't walk away from a life-changing pension and a career at the highest level of the armed forces. But Nims heard the mountains calling him, even though mountaineering as a full-time career was new to him at this point. His first major climb was in 2012, when he summited Labuche East, a relatively small Himalayan peak by comparison, but that was just the beginning. He kept taking on challenging mountains, and in 2014, he reached the top of Dhaulagiri, an 8,000-meter mountain, in just 15 days, setting the tone for what was to come. In 2016, he summited Everest for the first time, and Nims began to dream bigger. This is where Elite Exped comes in. Nims founded his climbing company, Elite Exped, in 2017 to share his passion for the mountains with others and to bring his unique approach to mountaineering to people who wanted to push their limits. Elite Exped isn't just about guided climbs. It's about teaching climbers how to go beyond what they think is possible. Nims's team included some of the top elite Sherpas, including Mingma David Sherpa and Mingma Tenzin Sherpa. With them, you don't just climb mountains, you learn how to master them. Nims didn't just guide others, he led from the front. His personal experiences and unmatched achievements made him one of the most respected figures in the world of high-altitude climbing. Every expedition was meticulously planned and executed, with safety, precision, and challenge at its core. Whether it was climbing Everest, tackling K2, or leading treks to less-known peaks, Nims had built Elite Exped to offer an adventure unlike any other. Nims' achievements didn't stop at records and climbs, though. In January 2021, Nims and a team of 9 other Nepalese climbers made history by completing the first-ever winter ascent of K2, one of the deadliest mountains on the planet. Yes, you heard that right. K2 in winter. That's a different beast entirely, with temperatures dropping to life-threatening levels and winds that can rip you off the mountain. But the team did it. Nims, without using supplemental oxygen, became the first person to summit K2 in winter without additional air, a feat almost unimaginable to most climbers. Through all of this, one thing remains constant with Nims, his belief that nothing is impossible. It's not just a slogan for him, it's a way of life. But even for a figure as accomplished as Nims, controversies and challenges have emerged over the years, bringing another perspective to his story. One such incident took place in September 2022, involving a tragic explosion, loss of life, and disputes with a resident of Kathmandu, Nepal. Here's what happened. On September 21, 2022, a massive fire engulfed a house in Kathmandu, where Nims' company, Elite Exped, had rented the ground floor to operate its office. The fire was caused by the explosion of gas canisters stored in the office space. The accidental explosion was devastating. 3 people lost their lives, others were injured, and the resident of the house, Tanka Gising, and his family were left homeless. According to Gising, everything they owned was destroyed within hours. He and his family were forced to live in a tent after the blast. This is where things got complicated. Gising claimed that the explosion was due to neglect from Elite Exped, and he expected Nims and his company to compensate him for the losses. The property damage alone was estimated to be worth over 50 million Nepalese rupees. That's about $375,000. Nims appeared open to negotiating a settlement, reportedly offering Gising compensation of 10 million Nepalese rupees in 4 installments. However, Gising alleges that Nims later withdrew the offer, leaving the family in a difficult situation. It wasn't just about the money, though. According to Gising, Nims even began to threaten him from the UK, daring him to take legal action if he wished. Gising further claimed that Elite Exped stored gas canisters on the property without his knowledge, suggesting this violated safety protocols and Nepalese law. Nims, however, has a different perspective. He publicly stated that Elite Exped had been in contact with Gising from the beginning, aiming to reach a resolution. In a social media post, Nims stated that his company offered compensation equivalent to around $750,000 in Nepalese rupees, but Gising declined the offer. Nims emphasized that legally Elite Exped was not obligated to pay anything, but they were trying to handle the situation out of goodwill. According to Nims, the allegations of him abandoning the victims and running away were completely false. Nims's business partner and co-owner of Elite Exped, Mingma David Sherpa, supported this claim. He stated that the company had indeed been working to resolve the matter. However, the offer they made simply wasn't enough for Gising, who maintained that he needed a lot more money to rebuild his life. To add fuel to the fire, no pun intended, Giesing had also accused Nims of using pictures of his gutted house to collect donations from abroad, supposedly for mountain cleanup campaigns. That claim further strained the relationship between the two parties. The incident sparked outrage in Nepal, particularly among the local Sherpa community and social activists. But a June 2024 article from Nepali press revealed some important details. Contrary to earlier claims, Giesing did have insurance on his house, although it was initially reported that he did not. So it would seem, as ruled in the High Court toward Nims's favor, that Giesing was likely looking for a bigger payout out of this tragedy. This controversy, while complicated, is just one chapter in Nims's larger story. Fame is a double-edged sword, and it seems like the more famous you get, the more you're in the spotlight of both good and potentially bad. People love to hate. One of the most significant and recent incidents took place in May 2024, when both Nims and his company, Elite Exped, were accused of breaking Everest climbing regulations. Now, for someone as high-profile as Nims, accusations like this raise serious questions, and the details of this story are both complex and fascinating. Let's start by setting the scene. Everest Base Camp during the peak of the climbing season is buzzing with activity. Dozens of expeditions prepare for their summit bids, and the stakes are incredibly high. In the middle of all this, reports circulate that member of an elite Exped team, who have a permit to climb a nearby peak called Lingtran, have crossed into Everest's territory without the proper permissions. This was a huge deal because climbing Everest wasn't just a matter of walking up and hoping for the best. You need specific permits, and these permits are not cheap. They're about $11,000 per person. On the other hand, a permit for Lingtran, a lesser-known peak, costs just $4,400 for a group. That's a significant cost difference. So why is this a big problem? According to statements from unnamed witnesses, instead of sticking to their designated route for Lingtran, some of the climbers allegedly crossed over to Everest and made their way through the Khumbu icefall. They even reached Camp 3, located on the Lhotse face at around 23,000 feet. Camp 3 is a crucial stop for climbers aiming to summit Everest, and getting there without the proper permits is a serious violation of Everest's strict rules. The concern wasn't just about following rules, though. It was also about safety. The Khumbu icefall is notoriously dangerous, with crevasses and shifting ice that can trap or injure climbers. It's a section that only experienced teams with Everest permits are meant to navigate. So, why would elite Exped climbers be on Everest in the first place? Some reports suggested they were using Everest's higher camps for acclimatization, which is essential when preparing for high-altitude climbs like Lingtran. By spending time at higher elevations, climbers give their bodies a chance to adjust to the thin air, which can give them an edge when they attempt their actual climb. However, using Everest's route for acclimatization without a permit is against Nepalese climbing regulations. Nims and Elite Exped were quick to deny the allegations. They released statements explaining that only two members of their team, Robert Hutchinson and Kayla Perez, had valid Everest permits. The rest of the group, they said, were training at base camp for an ascent of another peak called La Bouche East, not Everest. The story became even more layered when another expedition company got involved. It turns out that Hutchinson and Perez were actually on a permit issued to 7 summit treks, and Elite Exped had worked out what's known as a permit-sharing arrangement. This is a common practice where climbers from one team are added to another team's permit to make full use of the group limits. While this arrangement was legal, it didn't clarify why other members of Elite Exped's team were allegedly on Everest without proper permits. As this unfolded, Nepal's Department of Tourism stepped in and opened an official investigation. According to officials, the Expedition Monitoring and Facilitation Field Office, EMFFO, at Everest Base Camp would oversee the investigation, gathering reports from witnesses and examining whether Elite Exped had indeed crossed the line, literally and figuratively. Shortly after these reports came to light, another serious allegation emerged, this time involving Nims directly. Eyewitnesses claimed that Nims had taken a helicopter from Kathmandu and flown straight to Camp 2 on Everest. Now, if you know anything about Everest, you know that helicopter flights above base camp are strictly forbidden unless there's an emergency. There are a couple of important reasons for this. First, helicopters can only safely operate up to certain altitudes due to the thin air and unpredictable weather conditions at higher elevations, which can make flying and landing extremely dangerous. Second, using helicopters to skip past difficult sections like the Khumbu icefall is seen as against the spirit of mountaineering. The challenge of Everest isn't just reaching the summit, it's about overcoming the hazards along the way. Reports indicated that Nims had boarded a helicopter in Kathmandu, flown to the small town of Lukla, where his passengers disembarked, and then continued on alone to Camp 2. The flight allegedly bypassed Everest Base Camp altogether, landing at Camp 2 so Nims could meet up with his team and prepare for a summit attempt. Not only did this raise ethical questions, but it also sparked concerns about safety and fairness. If climbers could simply skip dangerous sections using helicopters, what would that mean for the future of mountaineering on Everest? It's worth noting again that one of the loudest voices on this issue, the Himalayan Times, is currently under lawsuit and investigation. In response, Nims and his team have consistently denied any wrongdoing, insisting that the reports are either false or exaggerated. They have welcomed the ongoing investigations and maintain that they acted in accordance with all relevant regulations. As of now, the investigation remains ongoing, but the controversy has stirred significant discussion in the climbing community. Piling on to the negative press of the 2024 climbing season, the controversy surrounding Nims' claim of sliced ropes on Everest brought even more unwanted attention. This incident became a major topic within the mountaineering community. Nims made a significant claim. A section of the fixed rope used by climbers on Everest appeared to have been deliberately cut, potentially endangering climbers.
What I have heard is people have cut the rope just below the south summit, above the balcony. Everyone knew that my team is going for the summit first. There's so much dirty politics going on.
His team members, including experienced Sherpas, supported the claim, suggesting that the rope appeared to have been deliberately cut, estimating that about 120 feet of it had been cast down the mountain. The outrage from the climbing community was quick and fast. Nims clearly must be lying, and this was just another bid for attention. Who would deliberately cut ropes in an already life-threatening situation? The outrage prompted a swift response from Nims, who posted a video on his Instagram account showing the cut ropes. He also gathered statements from Sherpas on his team to support his claim. In the video, Nims holds up the severed rope, stating, "They're calling me a liar." But that's the evidence, right there.
They're calling me liar. That is the evidence of rope being cut.
Even with the backing of his team and video evidence, Nims faced backlash. Some critics accused him of exaggerating the story to gain attention or create controversy. The Nepalese government quickly became involved. On May 27th, just a day after Nims's claims, the Department of Tourism, DOT, issued a statement denying that any ropes had been tampered with. According to the DOT, several climbers from another expedition by Pioneer Adventures successfully summited Everest on the same day as Nims's team, reporting no issues with the ropes. The DOT then launched an investigation into Nims' claims, accusing him of spreading misinformation for popularity. These accusations were significant for Nims, who has built a reputation on transparency and integrity. The investigation put his entire career under intense scrutiny. Nims, in turn, doubled down on his claims, welcoming the investigation and asserting that the truth would come out. "I have faced a lot of negativity, and people trying to bring me down behind the scenes since 2019, Nims wrote in another social media post. "When all I ever wanted to do was raise the name of Nepal and its climbing community and bring tourists to see this beautiful country." To support his claim, Nims shared more video evidence showing the cut ropes and included statements from other Sherpas on his team, all confirming the same story. As you can see, I have the evidence to back up exactly what was reported. he said, hoping that the investigation would vindicate him. Notably, Sanu Sherpa, a renowned mountaineer and record holder for summiting all 14 peaks twice, confirmed that he saw the cut ropes in the video as well. This added credibility to Nims' claims, though it did not settle the controversy. As the days went on, the situation became more complicated. Some, like Kali Bahadur Bhujel, a spokesperson for the Department of Tourism, insisted that other climbers successfully used the ropes after Nims' team, casting doubt on the claim that the ropes had been cut. Amid this turmoil, a much more personal controversy surfaced: harassment allegations against Nims. The year 2024, which might have been another highlight of Nims' career, instead brought significant challenges that affected his reputation. The allegations came from two women, Finnish mountaineer Lotta Hintsa and American physician Dr. April Leonardo, who both climbed alongside Nims during expeditions. This scandal cast a shadow over a climber once celebrated for his groundbreaking achievements in high-altitude mountaineering. Though Nims denied the allegations, the impact was swift. Sponsors distanced themselves, and elite Exped found itself in the middle of the controversy. In response to the allegations, Nims filed a defamation lawsuit against the New York Times, claiming that their story misrepresented events and damaged his reputation. His legal team argues that the publication failed to verify the facts before running the story, leading to unnecessary harm to his character. In a sport as extreme as mountaineering, where dangers include avalanches, storms, and low oxygen levels, this story highlighted a far more personal kind of risk. Women in the climbing world have increasingly spoken out about their experiences with harassment and unethical behavior. Nims's case added to this broader conversation, highlighting challenges female climbers face beyond the physical risks. Lotta Hintsa, known for both her mountaineering and her title as a former Miss Finland, was among the first to speak out. She initially shared her experience in a blog, referring to an unsettling encounter with a very famous male climber, without naming him. However, in interviews with the New York Times, Hintsa identified Nims as the climber she had written about. She described a disturbing incident in Kathmandu during what was meant to be a business meeting about future expedition collaborations. Hintsa chose to speak out, hoping her story would bring attention to the unseen dangers women face in the sport, not from the mountains, but from their fellow climbers. Hers was not the only story. Dr. April Leonardo, a family physician from California, also came forward with troubling claims against Nims. She joined an expedition to K2, the world's second highest peak, led by Nims' company in 2022. While she had been excited for the challenge, her experience during the climb left her feeling uneasy and uncertain. To protect both parties and unverified information, I won't go into details of their specific allegations, but if true, they are unsettling. Both women shared their experiences with friends and family soon after the alleged incidents, providing text messages and other communications as evidence. Hintsa messaged a close friend about her encounter with Nims the same day it occurred, while Dr. Leonardo contacted her father from base camp, expressing discomfort with Nims' behavior. The allegations carry particular weight given Nims' influential position in the mountaineering world. With over 2 million followers on social media and sponsorships from major brands like Red Bull and Nike, Nims is a key figure in modern mountaineering. Nims actively encouraged women to join high-altitude expeditions, guiding prominent clients like Asma Al-Thani, a member of the Qatari royal family, and Russian model Victoria Bonya. His status as both a climber and businessman made the allegations even more shocking within the climbing community. Despite the gravity of the accusations, Nims has strongly denied them. Through his lawyer, he issued a statement calling the allegations false and defamatory, emphasizing his commitment to honesty and integrity. He insisted that he had never engaged in any inappropriate behavior. However, the fallout was immediate. Sponsors began to distance themselves from him, and his guiding company, Elite Exped, came under increased scrutiny. What we do know for sure about this guy is that he is a legendary climber and has shown the world that nothing is impossible in the mountains. In 2019, he set out to summit the world's 14 tallest peaks in a record time. He shocked the mountaineering community by completing this mission in just 6 months and 6 days, a feat that had previously taken climbers years to achieve. This achievement also brought new attention to the Sherpa community and the support they provide on the world's highest mountains. Beyond his record-breaking speed climbs, Nims has been a vocal advocate for raising awareness about climate change and the impact it has on the mountains. He's also known for his rescues on high-altitude expeditions, often putting himself at risk to assist other climbers in distress. These actions have only added to his reputation as a climber committed not only to summits, but also to the welfare of others on the mountains. Love him or hate him, Nims remains one of the most influential figures in modern mountaineering, consistently pushing the boundaries of what's possible at the highest altitudes. What do you think about him? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay bold and live brave.